So 30 to 34 was the ideal. And 35 was literally the plan. Like by 35, I'll probably just retire. And then you start to think, I can still do this. And
that bug, yep.
But now it comes down to physiology, right? Like metabolism starts to slow down. Then you realize, like 2 weeks off, you hurt your body in a way that's almost like it took 3 months off training. You feel like you gain weight within 2 weeks that you wouldn't happen like when you're like younger and things like that. So the whole change of like, my body's changing. I mean, I'm not like a 23-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm not in my early 30s anymore. And that's what really convinced me, like, hey, man, you gotta stop now. You're either gonna stop, and I'll be honest, like, and I'm not like a huge advocate, like, you're like, I don't take steroids. Do whatever you want. You're a grown man, like, but I'm in a way for myself. That's one thing that I've always, even though people don't even believe that, I've always been like, not for me.
Right.
If you can do it, do it. If you cannot do it anymore, it's time to call it quit. And that's the biggest thing for me when I start to approach that age that I feel like my body was not responding anymore. It's like, now it is time to really just walk from like professional competition.
Yeah, I wanted to segue. That's such a big topic in just sports in general with the steroids, and then obviously what's going on now, right? Like the modern jiu-jitsu, Gordon Ryan, stuff like that. So you just told me about like your philosophy. So you've never, because I feel the same way. It's just personally, from my point of view, it's like, hey man, like, it's the GSP thing, what he said. It's like you're pretty much kind of cheating.
It is,
depending on
that's what it is. And I'm not just that. So I'll tell you why this whole thing started, right? So I've been competing like, since I was like 14, right? Basically when I started. And I think it was like 2000, either 2000 or 1999, no, 2000 Worlds. This brown belt literally passed like a world championship in Rio. And then like, the result, why did it pass like on the mat? Steroids. So that thing just like traumatized me. It's like,
right,
the guy cheated and didn't even win the tournament.
It's like, at least do it, at least go all the way, man.
Yeah, but it wasn't just like, it was one of those things that I've always also feared the consequence of it, and I was like, at the end of it, there's any benefits. I'm gonna only mention his name because he's pretty vocal about like being on steroids. I'll give an example, Gordon Ryan, right? When I competed against Gordon, I was
at 20. He was 22 when you were 30.
I was 33. He was 22.
Yeah, right. I saw that one. Yeah,
and it's like he was already on stuff. And it's like, how did that benefit him? He went against a 30-plus-year-old guy, not taking anything. As a matter of fact, I had just got into a camp for PFL, and he still lost. And say, but that was in the beginning of his career. No, he wasn't. It was just 6 months after he had won HCC in his weight class, and he got a silver medal in absolute. So it's like, he was already a guy who's coming up, like one of the biggest names in the sport at that moment already.
Yeah.
So it's like, does it give any benefit? You might give it like a slight, like, it gives an edge for sure.
Edge, yeah.
If you already have the talent, then you put yourself like on that.
Sure, yeah.
That's when your cheating comes to place, right?
Superman status. Yeah.
If you give steroids to a guy who sucks at jiu-jitsu, he's not going to win a gold medal in HCC just because he takes steroids. But now you combine those two together, now it is 100% cheating. It's unfair.
Sure. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, that's a great.
Do I think that Gordon wouldn't win HCC if he was not on it? I think he would still win. He's extremely talented, but it's like, it definitely gets it gives a boost. Maybe he would not be as dominant.
Yeah.
I feel like he would have won.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of which, so yeah, the steroid thing, it's either, it's a weird one. It's just people, it's almost like religion almost, not to that extreme, but it's like people have different outlooks on it. And then if you don't have like, I don't know, like a USADA or something, it's like, okay, well,
whatever. There's no rules on that anyways, right?
Yeah. And then that's what people base it on. The next one, since we are talking about like Gordon Ryan, and then, that leads to John Donner, even Dean Lister, as I mentioned, with leg locks, man, I know, to me at least, from what I've seen in like the mass media and stuff, it seems like they're the ones that popularized it, right? Like almost, and then Dean Lister, I think, and then, but then when I saw you, when I was doing research on you, you were doing it for the end of time. Like you've been doing it for a long time, and even with that Fred Jones, then you know what I mean. That was like 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Or something.
No, actually, like Craig's Mad was in 5 years ago. It was 2000.
Oh, it's 5 years. Okay, yeah.
So I literally started doing leg locks when I moved to the States. That was in 2004.
Yeah.
But in competition, I started to get results when I was in 2005 as a brown belt. So my first like tournament that I really did a lot of leg locks was a Brazilian Nationals in 2005 as a brown belt, and then a Worlds, like half of the match are leg lock wins, including the final for my weight class. And then my first ever match in HCC, it was a heel hook. I actually happen to have the most heel hook like wins in HCC in my weight class as far as the heavy guys.
Yeah, right.
And I'm the second most, only behind Dean Lister. And you know that. So I play the whole like, oh, leg locks don't work. I'm literally like, I wouldn't call myself a leg lock guy because I chase like, whatever submissions available.
Blind triangles.
I happen to have numbers on that puts me as one of the guys that, it's been doing like the most and like,
Especially when you go ahead and research it, because that seems to be like the headlines, right? When you go on YouTube, it's kind of like, well, they were in this like 50-50, especially with the Craig Jones and the Enlisted one, and and all that stuff. What do you think about, so coming from Brazil and, with your lineage and stuff like that, is this true? I actually want to know, with the Gracie and all that, do they not approve of that? Like, is it, you know what I mean? It's there's this talk back and forth. I don't know what
it's not that they don't approve. So in the gym, right, they have like I explained earlier, they have this whole side of like self-defense, old school, and then the next thing for them is like IBJJF rule side. So in IBJJF, you cannot do like a toe hold or knee bar until you're a brown belt, black belt, brown belt, right? And then so basically when you trained based on those rules. So if you're a blue belt, you shouldn't be going for like leg locks. And not just that, the other side of it, it's literally the like, oh, if you go for leg locks, you're not trying to pass the guard. So that means that you don't have technique. And then there's another side, which is like the lineage of like Fada, which is around the Gracies, but they had like pretty much the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and there's the Fada Jiu-Jitsu, right? The Fada guys, they would just like sometimes in competition destroy the Gracie guys based on ankle locks and things like that. So basically it became like a forbidden thing for people that came from their Gracie lineage.
Oh, that's so interesting.
This guy's bit us with that.
Yeah.
So let's not do that. So it was I'll give an example. Like in 2005, when I went back to Brazil to train for Worlds, as a brown belt, I was getting some of the black belts like in knee bars and things like that. And then you could tell that even they're my friends. They were getting frustrated though.
Sure, yeah.
Because first, you're a brown belt.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be getting the black belts. And you're doing things that in our school, it's not as accepted like as in other schools. But it's like, dude, I'm competing for like Worlds. I gotta win these matches, and those are moves that I know I can surprise people. So why would I stop practicing them?
It's almost like a different political belief. Like if you're taking the back, I'm not gonna get into it, but then it's almost like, wait a minute, man, come on, man, like
that's exactly how it feels. It's like you don't have the right to. It's like
exactly,
but it's pretty much how it feels,
yeah.
And it's weird how people can even buy the whole thing. Oh, you cannot this. What are you talking about, dude? It's like I'll give an example. Like I always compare that, like kimuras. People never question like the legality of going for a kimura, right? But in my opinion, at least a shoulder injury, it's like it can be permanent, right? It's one of those things. Your shoulder could be always dislocated over like the rest of your life. You're always gonna have shoulder pain and things like that. And when it comes down to heel, it can be pretty damaging. But I'll give an example. Like when I had that match against Craig, like it didn't do anything to my knee. Broke my fibula, did nothing to my knee, nothing to my soft tissues at all. I used to have like a shoulder injury that happened when I was 16 years old. From falling on my elbow, like when I dropped guard. So it's one of those things. Yeah, that one injury from like when I was a kid.
Yeah, sure.
It still bothers me to these days, and that damage against Craig is like gone. It was gone like literally like in 4 months I was competing again.
Yeah. So you think it's just from them maybe not to figure that out, and then all of a sudden they were getting beat by it, so it was just kind of like, come on, man. Like, it was just out of frustration.
Yeah, just say it's not good. You're not.
Yeah.
If it works, it's good.
Yeah. So what again, obviously 10th Planet is all over the place. You're big. Yeah, you were also at Extreme, but the 10th Planet system. How much of the impact? You come from like the Gracie like lineage, I guess, and then 10th Planet. Which had more of an impact on your game, or like the 10th Planet? Can you explain about that system and how it helped you, or which one was better? I don't know.
So there's a whole like funny story about this, because people think that when I started to first play 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu game, then rubber guard and things like that.
Yep.
So then start to actually like go to Eddie and ask for like his input onto like some of the moves. So I first started doing rubber guard with Frank Mir on the Ultimate Fighter. That was in 2008.
Yep.
So he's not even a 10th Planet guy, but he was already doing like rubber guard. He was like, doing a lot of stuff like similar to what 10th Planet was working around like back in the day. And then once he starts to feel like, man, I can hit this whole like rubber guard all the time, I'm gonna ask for the guy. Now I'm gonna ask help from the guy that actually has a system like in this area.
Yep.
And that's when I connected with Eddie, and I started to really like get more involved with 10th Planet system. Out of the blue, that became like a huge part of my game, much more than in jiu-jitsu matches, but even more so like in MMA. if you look at a lot of my fights, I feel just I'm just as much of a danger like when I'm on my back as I would be on top. And a lot of that comes from like, I have that confidence of playing close guard, which most of the time is off like the rubber guard stuff. And that's when I was like, I gotta get with the guy who actually, has a system behind this.